Oh, I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
Like your background.
Thank you.
Very glad we connected. Thank you.
Me too.
Yeah,
You look
so I
familiar. I
believe,
think I might have met you at Nabi. You
oh, really?
maybe were you wearing coveralls with bees on them, a bee
Yeah,
print? I think I
yes,
stopped you and just, commented, that I thought it was great. I have a friend that she always wears coveralls and so is looking,
yes.
kind of for
That's
her. But
good.
yeah.
I had a lot of fun at Nabi. How about you?
It was great. Yeah, we had a good time, met a lot of new friends, saw a lot of old friends. And yeah, it's always like a family reunion for me whenever I go to a conference or, and meet a lot of beekeepers. It's like
I did
these
stop at
are
your booth.
okay, awesome. Yep, I
Yeah,
probably saw you there too. Great.
yeah, yeah. So Jason's from is MOB, and they are
Yeah.
you based in California?
We're actually a global company. We have folks in several different states as well, the United States. The company was founded in Switzerland, so it's a Swiss company with Italian founders who invented the hive while in Italy. So yeah, but they just recently, not this Nabi, but the Nabi before was kind of the first time they were available in the States. So really only a year and a half where they've been commercially available. I did want to share a little bit about my background. I'm a high school dropout. I grew up in New Jersey on the East Coast, and I really wasn't into science and math. And, I had a hard time in middle school and high school. And so I took about 10 years off and tried all different types of jobs. I was working as a bartender, a busboy, also working as a telemarketer and, all different types of things, painted cars. And so anyway, I decided I wanted to go back to school. I thought I would go for business because I needed the money. They told me I had to take a science class. And so timidly looked in the catalog, what kind of science class could I pass? And I found this one about beekeeping, and it just really fascinated me. And it was a science, it would have been my science requirement for the business degree. And so I was like, okay, let me try it out. And I met Dewey Karen there. He's a
Good
famous
guy.
beekeeper. Yeah, he
Yeah.
he wrote a book on beekeeping that's used as a textbook in a lot of schools. But yeah, he is an amazing guy. And so the first time I opened a hive with him in that class, I
Wow.
knew I was going to be doing it for the rest of my life as a fun thing to do or as my career.
You know
Um,
what? You wouldn't be able to pick a better person than Dewey for that.
I
Like
know the
you
bees
hit the
picked him for me, I
jackpot,
think.
man. Oh,
Yeah.
you did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. He got up in front of the class one time dressed up as a bee and did the waggle dance, to show college kids how it works. So, he was right there at my level and I loved it. And, we're still great friends. I could talk to him all the time. But yeah, he really turned me on to beekeeping and I,
Wonderful.
decided I wanted to become an entomologist. I changed my major from business to entomology. And then when I was getting ready to graduate, I said, Dewey, what should I do next? I could go into the industry. I could try to become a beekeeper and commercial beekeeper, something along those lines. He was like, I think, because you're so curious and you love to learn, I think I would go on to do your master's and PhD. And I was like, well,
Good for you.
yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for that, but yeah, he introduced me to Jamie Ellis at University of Florida.
Love Jamie. Yeah.
And Jamie was just starting up his lab. He didn't have any graduate students at University of Florida yet. So he brought me down and we went out to lunch. We drove around campus. We talked, and he's like, you know what? I would, give you a research assistantship, which would pay for your schooling. And then, you just work in the lab for, 20 hours a week. And that would, as a research assistant. And so I did that for my master's and my PhD. And then when I graduated, I went to Hawaii and I worked with an endangered Hawaiian yellow-faced bee. And then I moved to California and I worked with a nonprofit called Planet Bee Foundation, where we'd go into schools and teach kids about bees
Wonderful.
and about science, really, just from the bees' perspective. And we had sponsors at Google. So I had hives at Google, I've had hives at Western Digital, and a lot of the big tech companies around the Bay Area. And so I was making a presentation about innovations in beekeeping for the Google employees who were beekeepers. They wanted me to come in and do like a lunch talk with them about innovations in beekeeping. I did some research and bee, reached out to the team. We became fast friends and ended up offering me an opportunity to work with them. few months later. So it's been a wild ride. The bees have carried me every step of the way since that first time opening a hive.
What a story.
I feel super blessed.
Wow. You hit the jackpot with, I thought Dewey, like, whoa, this guy's a really lucky man. And then you went a step further and Jamie, like two wonderful people. So it's home for you, California. Is that where you're kind of putting your roots down? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, right now, yep, it's California. Me and my family live we're about 45 minutes from San Francisco on the east.
Yes. Okay. So yourself, you have your own apiary. How many hives do you have? All that good stuff.
So I do a lot of work with Primal Bee. We're doing pilots, projects with commercial beekeepers, and so I'm responsible for a lot of hives. I
I
would say
bet.
my personal hive, I have two in the backyard, and I have a friend's house nearby, and I have another two at a client's house. I probably have about 20 kind of spread out around at different clients' houses. I've done like kind of a mentoring program. Yeah, so I'm now using bring everything over to Primal Bee. I've used top bar hives. I've made my own top bar hives. I've used, I guess I started out using just Nuke, and I made, very tall Nuke. That was kind of when I was at University of Florida, and I enjoyed that. It was easy to make splits and things like that. When I shifted over to like 8 frame and 10 frame for a while. When I was in Hawaii, we couldn't get equipment as easily. Like it would cost us the same price of a Langstroth hive just to ship it. So it's double the cost to ship
Oh.
Langstroth equipment. So my own top bar hive there, and that did really well. I enjoyed, working with that. Now, I have one wooden hive that I'm getting ready to transfer into a primal beehive, and then I have two primal beehives set up in my yard. So
Tell me about the hive. I've seen it,
sure.
but you
Uh-huh.
tell me the nuts and bolts of it.
Eh, let's see, there's three kind of main pieces to the hive that I think really all work together really well. And I've seen great results. It's the three parts are the insulation, which everyone kind of notices right away, right? It's an insulated hive, and they've been using insulated hives in Europe for years. It's a great, we've also been looking at insulation kind of on wooden hives. There's a lot of beekeepers in the States and I'm sure in Canada as well who have wooden hives
Yeah.
with an insulative jacket around it. And so that's an important piece. Ours was designed for that insulation, but also the geometry inside the hive was designed so that when the bees keep it at the right temperature and humidity, the air currents move very slowly, but in a very controlled manner. So if you look at the inside of the hive or a frame, you pull a frame out and look at it, it's more of a trapezoidal shape than a rectangular shape.
Okay.
And this helps with the airflow and the temperature movement. And so what we get is like a really nice pocket of warm air up where the brood are, and also ventilation down the bottom so that the moisture can kind of go down those sidewalls really nice and easy and ventilate out the bottom. So you don't get condensation that you might get with like a hive with a bottom board and a jacket on it. It tends to sweat on the inside, and you end up seeing, like condensation drip down on the brood, and it can be really harmful. So geometry, insulation, and then the other really neat piece I think that got me hooked on Primal Bee was the really long frames. So the frames are three times the size, approximately. They're slightly smaller, but three times the size of a normal Langstroth deep. So if you took three Langstroth deeps and put them
Wow.
together, took out the top bars and bottom bars, and just were looking at the surface area, it's slightly smaller than three deeps. And it's, just seeing the queen lay on that. I mean, you can look on my background there.
Yeah.
Um, you
Very
get
cool.
just huge areas of continuous brood that's not split up by wood.
I love
The
it.
nurse bees don't have to hop over the bottom bar and the top bar to get from one deep to the other. Um, I really liked it just for the freedom it gives the queen to really, make the biggest colony she can. We, see in when people do cutouts, beekeepers, maybe go and find a hive that's moved into the walls of someone's house. We see this really long comb. We also see it in trees. And so when we put them in, smaller boxes, we're really kind of, trying to make them fit our world.
Yeah.
But with these longer frames, we're trying to fit in a bit more closer to their world, which I think we see huge benefits from. The populations I've seen, get really big, really strong. I don't have as much of a problem with swarming as I had when, I typically would run double deeps or even triple deeps and sometimes if I get a really strong colony going and I don't have time to split it. But when I would work those, if I were looking for swarm cells or I really wanted to get a good idea of what's going on with my brood, I'd have to take my top deep off and look in my bottom deep,
Yeah.
and splitting the colony in half and then putting it back together has to be destructive for the
Yeah.
colony. It's potential to roll the queen, and it's honestly, it's bad for my back to be doing that all the time. With these, the ergonomics are better. So like right about my elbow level is where the frames are and coming up. And so I lift them up slightly. It did take a little bit, for me to get comfortable with it. Going from managing a small frame to managing this big frame, but I found ways to make it work by, turning it to its side and twisting it, or, resting it with one hand, being able to turn it at the top and have the frame resting on the hive itself. So it's easier for me to lift a bigger frame out of, instead of having to lift boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
What is it made out of, the Primal Hives?
so it's EPS, it's extruded polystyrene is the EPS, and then it's food grade. So you can use it just, I guess, same as plastics found in the buckets that we use for harvesting honey and things like
Okay.
that. It's food grade. It's also 100% recyclable.
Plastic, food grade plastic. It's EPS, and it's the highest density we could get. So when folks usually think about like the disposable coolers that you get from a gas station or something like that for bait, those are like around a 10 or 20% density. This is around a 80 to 90% density, and we're actually increasing the density for the next kind of batches. So
Oh,
yeah, it's very, very durable. It doesn't, so it's UV resistant in that if you put it out in the sun, it'll get a little bit of a suntan to it without painting it. You can paint, but you need to use water-based paints and water-based glues. Certain oils and solvents can damage the EPS, and so
yeah. So
you know,
what colors does it come in? Just the white or the steel?
just white.
Nice.
Just white. That'll eventually turn tan or
Well, I think that's
orange.
classy. I like that.
Yeah,
Classy.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could paint it, you could prime it, you could use polyurethanes, just as long as everything doesn't have oils or solvents in it.
So the actual box is not heavy, is it?
No, it's about the same as, I guess when you have a double deep, but it's more, I guess it's less awkward because when
Okay.
you go to lift it up and move it, you don't have to worry about the strap, and things shifting because it's all one piece, which is
I think
great.
that, yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and when you set it up if you're a stationary beekeeper where you just keep your hive in the same place year round, you don't really need to lift very much at all.
No.
You don't, the hive's stable where it is. And once you get that nest box full, if you're looking for the queen, you only need to pull out 2 or 3 frames. You don't need to lift
Issue.
one box
Yeah.
off of another. So yeah, it is. And I put supers on mine, where, if I put 1 or 2 supers on, then I don't stack it super high. I have seen them stacked, super high, but I just like to pull the frames out once they get honey bound and I put them in storage for harvesting later.
Okay.
And so I'm just removing frames instead of removing, whole super boxes.
So what size would the super be? The same as a deep, or is it the same as?
Yeah, the same as a deep. So
Okay.
with the kit,
Okay.
you get the nest box, which is your triple deep, basically. That's kind of the engine for the
Awesome. Like,
queen.
how cool is that?
Yeah.
A triple deep.
Yeah. So you get that. You get the bottom board, and then you have your choice whether you like to work with deeps or with mediums. If you like to work with Langstroth deeps, you get 2 deeps. If you like to work with Langstroth mediums, you get 3 mediums, and it's the same price. They don't come with frames, but you would just use your existing medium or deep frames that you have in your, so you don't have to change that equipment as far as honey harvesting. You would just use your own, standard deep or medium equipment.
Okay. So
Uh,
how many frames does the hive have? How many does it hold?
so it holds 8 frames.
Okay.
And the footprint of it is 10 frame. So it's the size of a 10 frame box, but because of those walls are so thick, it holds 8 frames. We also have a follower board inside. And so those familiar with top bar beekeeping, a follower board is meant to kind of gradually expand that space. So when you put
Okay.
the bees in, they're, in a smaller volume of space to work on and focus on. And then as that colony grows, you kind of move that follower board
Yes.
along.
Yeah.
So one of our frames is a follower board, has a follower board insert in it that you can, move it along and let them grow. And then when you're done, you can, when they get the whole box filled out for 7 frames, if you want, you can take that EPS filler out and turn that eighth frame into that follower board into your eighth frame. So.
Awesome. Okay. So when we talk about frames, some people use plastic foundations. What do you guys do?
So I personally prefer wax foundation and kind of always have. But we do have a plastic foundation as well. We aren't set up, so we're still a growing company, and we don't have the facilities or logistics to wax our plastic frames. So if someone orders wax or if someone orders plastic frames or foundation um, from our web shop, they need to actually apply the wax themselves to the plastic foundation. But it also has holes and tabs and pegs kind of built around the frames that are designed for you to wire the frame and then add wax foundation to it. And I like it better. I think the bees draw it out faster. And I like it because I can cut off drone brood very easily off of that I can't really do
Have
with the
you,
plastic
do
foundation.
anyone ever just put in the frame and just let the bees build it?
Yes. Yeah, we've had a
Yeah.
couple people that are, want to go foundationless.
Yeah, yeah,
And they just kind of do a starter strip at the
yeah.
top and let the bees, and we've seen some success with that. The only thing that you have to consider is it's a very long space for them to draw down. And so if you have the hive tilted one way or the other, then the bees will start to do cross comb. So you got to make sure it's perfectly vertical and then
Right.
kind of check it along the way to make sure that they're following that shape of the frame. Otherwise, you'll get some cross comb.
Okay. So like if you went to get a hive from you guys, do you have the wax foundation included or someone has to purchase?
Yeah, someone would have to purchase it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
do also we have the plastic foundation available, if someone wants to go that route. If they want to purchase it, I found, a lot of suppliers that sell the wax foundation and
So you did
yeah.
mention it has a bottom board, right? That was my thing. It has a normal bottom board, like a regular hot, like a Langstroth.
Yes, yep. It has a screen bottom board. And so it was interesting for me because the hive is so well insulated everywhere, like really thick walls, especially down at the bottom where the entrance is because of that taper that, the the bee space makes with the frame. But so at the bottom, it's super well insulated. But there's a hole at the very bottom, and that's where the screen, is a screen bottom board, and it has a Varroa tray. So just a kind of thin piece of corrugated plastic that goes into the bottom board, and that's the buffer for our humidity and temperature. But it also allows for the condensation to kind of ventilate and evaporate out, and so it's really a yeah, perfect combination there. So,
Well, I guess if you're living in a cold climate, like Newfoundland,
right,
we don't use screen bottoms in the in the winter. I don't.
sure,
So
right.
how would you do if I had one of those? What would I do?
So if you had one of these, I would do it the same way. I would have it with my Varroa tray in all the time, which is this, corrugated plastic with the screen bottom board and give it a try. Because the envelope, the heat that the bees have right there at the brood and the way that the convection works, they're going to be able to still maintain that 95 degrees on the brood. And the rest of the hive will stay probably, 80-ish down the bottom where the ventilation currents are happening. Yeah, if you were to put a solid bottom board on it, what would happen is the condensation would run down, it would get trapped on that bottom board, and then because of the heat, it would evaporate up to the roof, and then it would drop back down again onto the brood. And so you'd start, this little rain system inside of there if you had a solid bottom board. That's why, I guess the insulation this was made in the Swiss Alps, in Italy and the Swiss Alps, and so very, very cold climates as well. Um, but the Varroa tray seems to work anyway. Just
Yeah, for sure.
with the geometry and everything. Yeah.
So people who have it, do they still insulate? Like if you're in
No.
my climate,
Yep.
people still insulate or no?
No need anymore. Yeah, the hive is
Wow.
its insulation. Yeah, so they don't need to put jackets on it or anything else. It's a R50 on the sidewalls. On the top, you can add an air bubble. Basically, we have a feeder lid, so you could put your feeder lid down, and then you could put an empty super around that feeder lid, and then you put the outer cover, and so this extra air bubble, provides you up to 100 R value at the top. So yeah, it's really well
Wow.
insulated. Should definitely get you one to give it a try.
Wow.
I guess we ship free in the United States, but going into Canada would be a bit bigger. I guess Newfoundland would be a bit bigger of a shipping logistical issue for us, but I'm sure we could make it work. We often ship into Canada, where we ship to Washington, and then the person has like a service or something like that that is able to transfer it from Washington over the border, and so
Mhm.
that's how we've worked it in the past. But yeah, we would love to have you try Hive out and
Oh, absolutely.
see what you think. Right now, we're working with Hilco. Hilco stocks our hives,
Okay.
so that's the only distributor that we have currently. That it's selling online, I believe. But yeah, I'd have to check that with the rest of the team. We might have brought on a couple other partners.
Do you know
Um,
what? You guys need to come to Canada.
yeah, I think so. We're actually planning on, getting production happening in the US soon. So right now we're shipping everything from Italy to the US and then distributing. But if we could also have production happening in the US, that'll definitely pave the way to getting it to Canada easier. So,
Do you know what I
yeah.
love? Few things that I love since I heard you talking. I love the fact of the long, long frame. I love
Yeah.
it's true when I see like I've done a few cutouts and absolutely they go the length of a wall with the comb.
Yeah.
Definitely. I love the fact the queen gets to kind of make her decision of where she wants to lay. It's not kind of, structured to what fits us best. It's funny, I had this post and it was about nukes actually, because that's a hot topic. What should you expect in a nuke? So I did that little post, but it was a frame. And one of the followers commented and they said, I wonder if the queen had all this space, would she actually lay in more of a circle? I'm thinking, but you can probably answer that. If she's getting a little more space, do you see a difference in her laying pattern?
Yeah, we end up seeing usually on the middle two or three frame when I see them totally build out. I usually see on the middle two or three frames, just straight brood top to bottom. And then
Wow.
I'll see on as I go out, your fourth frames on either side ish, I'll start to see a ribbon of pollen and nectar around it. Every once in a while, I'll see them actually just honey bound, the outside frames, which is extra insulation. And it's also super close to them to be able to get that
Yeah.
food instead of having to go up into another box to get it. And then, putting the supers on, I never had to use a queen excluder because the queen, it's the perfect environment for her down in the nest box. She doesn't go up into the super. And
I
when she
really,
starts to run out of room
yeah,
down there, she doesn't really run out of room in the bottom to
yeah,
continue to lay because there's so much space. Once she's done, laying eggs on one frame, there's
yeah,
workers hatching on another frame she can just jump
exactly.
over to. So yeah, it's great.
For example, if it's chock full with brood, you have your 8 frames. What happens if they get totally like either honey bound, like they're ready or could be ready to swarm? What happens then?
So, I mean, the easiest way is to do splits, of course,
Okay.
to
Yeah.
try to manage that, right? And so it was interesting for me too because as doing beekeeping for so long, like and mentoring a lot of brand new beekeepers, throughout my life, I've always told them, this disclaimer: if we start a hive this year, don't expect to get any honey this year.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
this is the bees' time to build, and we'll see if they have honey the second year. But yeah, no guarantees the first year for honey. with this hive, I set it up in December in California, which is not an ideal time to set up a hive, but I had a colony that was just barely hanging on, and they were going to die if I didn't move them or do something with them, requeen them or something. So I decided not to requeen. I decided just to move those bees into a primal bee hive and give it a go. Um, I didn't give them any resources, no brood, no pollen, no honey. I just put the bees and the queen into the primal bee hive with undrawn foundation, and then I fed them a really heavy syrup, for, 4-to-1 syrup mixture for so more the consistency of honey than the consistency of nectar, and this
Yeah.
got them to
Oh,
build out that foundation real quick. I had a full nest box by April, and was putting my first super on. By about June, I was putting my second super on. By the end of summer, I put on my. So I got 3 supers of honey on this one hive. That's a first year hive, and for me, that's never happened before. It's always been, maybe the second year I'll get 3 supers of honey, but yeah, the first year never. And having it next to a wooden hive that I'm, out in the morning, I'm out in the evening, kind of taking a look at it. I see that the bees at the primal beehive are coming out faster, and so they're coming out, when the sun's just barely peeking up, and then they're coming back later at night. After the wooden hive, it takes them an hour or two to get out of bed in the morning, and then they're the first ones to clock out at the end of the day. But the primal beehive just seems to keep going. I think because they don't need as many bees behind to kind of keep
yeah.
everything warm and perfect in
I was just
there.
going to say about the swarming because some people say, okay, you know what? If you're starting to see things getting chock, like full, add a
Hmm.
box. But I guess
Yeah.
with this, you can't really add a box unless it's like for honey. Am I right?
Yeah, so you're just adding boxes for honey, and
Yeah.
the colony will continue to go down there if you you
Okay.
know if you wanted to, and you were concerned about a split and you get any swarm cells, that I would move those to other equipment.
Okay. I gotcha.
Um, to make a primal beehive, so to do a split off of one primal beehive, you could really just take 1 or 2 of those frames, which is equal to 3. One frame is 3 deeps. So 2 frames is already 6 deeps. It's the same as a nuke. So just taking 1 or 2 of those frames and putting them in a new primal beehive is a split. So if you have 8 frames to start with and they're all doing good, I mean, you could get 3 to 4
Yeah.
hives per split off of each primal beehive versus
Where
just
have
one
you
split,
been all my life?
So the growth, instead of
Wow.
being like just one at a time, right? We're
Yeah.
we're not splitting into twos, we're splitting into threes or fours, and so yeah, it's really neat.
Amazing. How
But so
long
that's what
have
I
they
thought.
been? I know. How long have they been using this in Italy or in
So
Switzerland?
they started about 15 years ago when they went through, they had a wooden version, they had a
Yeah.
polyurethane version, they experimented with lots of different materials. The founders are brilliant.
That like a ratchet strap that you have around your hive?
Yeah,
That yellow
so
thing?
yep. Yep, it
Yeah.
comes with a ratchet strap to buckle
Okay.
it down to the hive stand. We actually have a black one now. It's a bit even thicker. We're constantly making improvements. We had for our entrance reducers,
Oh,
we used to have an EPS entrance reducer. I like these because they just let 2 bees, 1 or 2 bees go in through each hole
yes.
at a time, and then you could kind of turn it to close it.
I like that.
Um, but so, we have 2 entrance reducers, so one on either side of the hive. So you could have one open, one closed, one totally removed, so
Yeah.
you have a lot of options there for ventilation. But these used to be EPS and a bit weaker. You could break them, if you pushed on
Oh,
it too hard. But these are 3D plastic. And
brilliant.
so
Yeah.
it's different things we're looking at, improvements we can make along the way.
Anything you see the difference of like the bees properlizing the inside as opposed to a wooden?
They do still propolize the inside, which I was happy to see because
Yeah.
that propolis envelope I think is really important for them. It's a
Yeah.
rougher texture on the inside
Oh,
walls,
okay. There you
so
go.
that encourages the propolis buildup. The I don't see the problem when you have like a wooden hive and 2 pieces of wood laying flat on top of each other, they propolize and gum up the middle
Yeah.
of that. The way this is built, it's designed where they don't have as much access to that section where they're connecting. It's like got a bevel to it, so the bees can only do like a bead of propolis around the inside to get the
Oh, okay.
lid stuck on. So, really easy to pop open for inspections. Really easy for them to reseal, and less waste of propolis. But you do see like a
Right.
reddish propolis envelope inside
Yeah.
the hives. Hmm.
So the frames that goes in them, are they sturdy like that intro introducer you have?
So yes, the frames are sturdier plastic. It's different than the engine seducer, but I think it's probably polypropylene is the material, but it's also a food grade plastic, and it's fairly rigid, but it's got some flexibility, you know. So yeah, we're working on looking at different ways
Awesome.
to make that as well, and yeah, but
Yeah.
it's that it seems those frames work. I think great. The thing I like about it too is because that trapezoidal shape, when you go to put the long frames in, you're putting a smaller space into a larger space, and so you don't roll as many bees when you're putting it back
Oh,
down as if you're putting a rectangle into a
yeah.
rectangular box. So,
Yeah, I hear you. I'm
yeah,
just looking at this frame behind you. Like, that's beautiful. I
it
look at all
is.
that
Yeah,
brood.
I know. I was
Wow.
super impressed too when I first
I
saw
mean,
it. And
I like the fact insulation. I love that fact. And a lot of people think, oh my gosh, like they're going to get too hot. But I mean, they obviously they have their own air conditioning. They're going to cool if they're hot. But I just love the fact. I mean, they probably, you know what? They probably don't have to work as hard either,
they
right?
don't, yeah. So
Yeah.
that
Less
cooling and
resources.
yeah, cooling, they have to fly out, fire water, bring it back, fan their wings, and all that
Hmm.
costs them honey. If
Yeah.
they're heating the hive, they have to, huddle together and vibrate, and that's costing them honey.
Yeah.
So if we can keep the temperature and the humidity perfect inside the hive, I think we're doing the best for the bees. I had heat waves here where it reached 105 degrees. Is kind of like was our heat wave in California for a good week or two. And I saw in my wooden hive all the bees bearding out front,
Yeah.
and sometimes sleeping outside overnight just to keep the hive cool for the brood. And I didn't see any bearding at all on the primal beehive that was
That's
right next to it in
awesome.
the same yard. It was just
Wow.
it's a heat wave outside. We're not going to go out. We're just going to stay inside and keep the brood cool. And yeah,
I think it's wonderful that you have it side by side and you can kind of compare both, like the
yeah,
observations that you've had. That's great. Wow.
yeah,
You're the
yeah.
man. That's good. Well, this has been great. I think all my questions, like the honey. Oh yeah, so the honey super that comes like in a plastic, the same as did you call that the nesting box? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, the nest box is kind of like the
Yes.
main.
Okay.
That's where the queen's going to make the brood. And then the
Okay.
supers are also the same material, and they fit on it perfect. And with the
Wonderful.
bevel, if you go to kind of shift it from side to side, it doesn't slide like a problem, like I guess like a wooden hive would.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, man, you got me. Like, I just think of the weight, less weight, the
Mhm.
insulation. I like the intro introducer that you have. You sold me on the bottom board that it's a screen, but you can put this little thing in because I'm a bit weird when it comes to
Sure,
that.
sure. Yeah.
One last
Thank
question. I
you.
don't mean to put you on. I'm going to ask you two. Don't mean to put you on the
Okay, yeah.
spot.
No worries.
One, what do you wear when you're beekeeping?
So if I'm beekeeping and I'm at a commercial beekeeper's yard and there's thousands of hives and I'm not the last person to work them and or if I go to someone else's yard, I'll usually wear my full suit with my gloves. I like my Apis tactical gloves
Yeah.
is they're my favorite gloves. I have an Ultra Breeze bee suit that I wear. That's my full suit with my it's a three mesh. It was one of the first three
Yep.
mesh suits and I've had that for 5 years. It's done great for me. Didn't even break a zipper on it. And so that's what I wear if I'm beekeeping in someone
Yep.
else's yard or in an intense situation. If I'm beekeeping in my backyard, I usually wear a t-shirt, shorts, my slippers, and I'll wear a veil. Or yeah, I had a friend that used to just wear goggles because he wanted to protect his eyes, and I
Mhm.
tried that a little bit, but I didn't like having it so close to my face. So I wear a veil, but yeah, that's about it. I like to be able to feel the bee, and those bees, I feel like your bees get to know you, right? And so my bees in my
Absolutely.
backyard,
I'm so glad you said that. People argue with me. I'm not sure if you follow the site, but I've had like arguments that like they tell me no, blah blah blah. I think they do. I do.
yeah, if I go out there and I'm mean to them, they're going to be mean to me. If I'm nice to them, then they're nice to me in general.
Yeah.
And so, unless I'm not being present and not paying attention, and I'm thinking about what I got to do after I'm done beekeeping, and I put the box down a little hard or something like that, that's when I get a sting or two, and it's just
Yeah.
them reminding me. get in the moment. You're doing
Yeah.
this right now, do it well. And so, yeah.
I love what you just said, being present. I think that's so important because our lives are so busy. Okay, I'm going to say two things. What has two things has beekeeping brought you?
Uh, More than two things. I mean, just joy, happiness, friends. Like there's a lot of people that I'm really close to. And it's, through our bond of
Yeah,
beekeeping that we've, years and years of really, really joyful, treasured friendships is a big thing.
yeah, important.
It's given me a way to give back to the community. And I
Yeah,
love that. Being able, so as a, high school dropout, being able to go to a middle school or an elementary school and get kids excited about some aspect of science and nature and
I know, right?
biology and things like that. It's been, yeah, the I guess, and it's helped put food on my plate and given me
Right.
some help with my family and yeah, so many different things with
Isn't it?
beekeeping.
It
I
kind of
Yeah,
targets a lot of almost every aspect of your life, as I'm concerned.
it
Yeah.
really does. Yeah,
The bees are lucky to have you, my friends. They're
I'm lucky to
awesome.
have
They're
them.
even hiding.
It's mutual. Yeah, yep. I'm glad to meet you and looking
Yeah.
forward to our friendship
I just
growing over
hope
the
someday
years.
I'll
So
have
thanks.
that. I just hope someday I have that frame that you have in back of you in my apiary.
Uh, You got to show me a picture when you do. I'm excited to
Okay.
go on the journey
Okay.
with you.
We'll chat
So
with you
thanks.
soon. You're
All
awesome.
right.
Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.